Hello, everyone. It's nice to have you back. I'm CJ, and welcome to Tea and True Crime with CJ, or T&T with CJ. If you're a loaded tea junkie or a true crime junkie, then this channel is definitely for you. And what I do here is talk about a true crime case over a loaded tea. Speaking of loaded teas, today I'm having the High Road. And yes, it's named after the song High Road by Wetzel. I mean, who doesn't like Wetzel? I forgot how good this is. It's been such a bestseller at the shops, and it sold out 3 times already. And I just got it again, and kind of don't want to share with everybody that it's back in stock. It's crazy how fast this tea sold out. High Road again. It's got raspberry limeade. It's so good. This one is so good, and I just missed it. So, cheers. If you like this type of content, then I encourage you to subscribe and like this video. Don't forget to comment your thoughts and your opinions in the comments section below. So with all this being said, let's go ahead and move on to our case. And today we're going to talk about the sad case of Renae Marsden. And let me tell you guys, this case blew my mind away. It made me feel like I was watching some sort of Lifetime thriller. People wouldn't do that right? I mean, that's what I thought. I was lost several times trying to figure out what exactly was going on, who was at fault, and if I was confused, imagine the victim's family. It was a real nightmare for the Marsden family. The whole family fell into a monstrous deception. Even more so because in their eyes, there's no sense of justice being served in this case. This case also spanned over several years, and still, to this day, nobody knows what exactly happened. So we'll be right back. Let me introduce you to the Marsden family. They lived in Australia in the suburbs near Sydney. Teresa Marsden was married to Jamie Death when she gave birth to Renae on October 15th of 1992 in a Fairfield hospital. Renae was about 2 years old when her parents separated. A couple of years later, Teresa met Mark Marsden. And after some time of dating, she and her daughter Renae moved in with Mark. I believe Renae was about 5 years or so at that time. Teresa married Mark in 2000, and 3 other children were born: Luke, Jake, and Monique. Renae later adopted the family name Marsden, and she was about 18 years old, give or take. Come 2013, Renae was living happily at home, working a full-time job, and looking forward to her 21st birthday coming up in October of that year, of 2013. She had close and loving relationships with family and friends, and she was even talking about moving out and sharing an apartment with her cousin Stephanie. Renae was also in a relationship with a boy named Braden Spiteri. She was making plans to marry this guy sometime after her 21st birthday. She even made an appointment for November 30th of 2013 to speak with a wedding photographer. So she was really, really excited about this wedding. And we'll get into this boy, Braden Spiteri, later. But first, let me go ahead and give you a sense of what Renae's family home life was like. Renae Marsden really loved her mother, Teresa, and she was really close to her. They were more like best friends, and they told each other everything. Renae was also described as being nurturing and kind-hearted, and she loved being an older sister to her 3 younger siblings. To Renae, family came first, and everything else came second. And she proved this because on Mother's Day, Renae surprised her mom, Teresa, with a tattoo in her honor written down the side of her rib cage. The words read, "Life is beautiful because of you." That's how close she and her mom were. And that says a lot. Renae also had a close friend by the name of Camilla Zayden. They met in 2005 during high school at Mount St. Benedict's College. I think she was a freshman. In 2008, Renae and Camilla would continue to be in contact, but they had a short falling out when Renae had a crush on Camilla's younger brother. I mean, why would she get mad? But she still managed to find someone because by April of 2010, Renae and a young man by the name of Angus were in an intimate relationship. Angus later described Renae as a very happy and bubbly person who would always look on the bright side of life, a glass half full type of person, according to him. But that relationship didn't really last long. And it was in late November of 2011 when Renae was introduced to Braden Spiteri through her close friend Camilla Zayden. Renae was hesitant at first because it turned out that Camilla and Braden had dated some time in the past. But Camilla was like, "Oh no, girl, it's okay. That was a long time ago." And Renae was like, "Are you sure?" "Yes, here's his number." And that's how Renae got a hold of Braden Spiteri's phone number. And they began texting almost immediately. And within a short amount of time, this is exactly what she found out. He was 24 years old. He came from a wealthy family. He attended one of Sydney's most prominent private schools. He was one of 3 children. He was already in the process of taking over his father's successful construction business, which specialized in high-rise buildings. And to top it off, he was also handsome. Renae knew this because Camilla had shown her a picture of Braden and Camilla together. In the picture, Renae could tell that Braden had a muscular physique and clean-cut dark hair that was also kind of slicked back. Renae also found out that Braden had clear goals for his life and that revolved around marriage and starting a family. But there was a problem. Of course, there's always a problem. This was sounding too good to be true. So, get this. Apparently, Braden had been involved in a motorcycle accident. His best friend was with him and he passed away as a result. So when the court date came, he was convicted of manslaughter and he was sentenced to 2 years in Goulburn prison, about 2 hours south of Sydney, give or take. Renae was devastated when she couldn't meet Braden, but he reassured her that the time would go by fast and he would be out before her 21st birthday. So when I read this, I was like, well, hold up. Wait a minute. If he's in prison, how is this possible? How is this communication possible? So, of course, I asked Google, can prisoners in Australia have a phone on them? And the answer was, of course, no. Well, it turns out that his lawyer managed to sneak a cell phone to Braden. And he, meaning Braden, couldn't risk speaking on it just in case someone else, overheard him. But at least he could send messages to Renae via text and social media. And that was enough for Renae. So just to recap, they met in 2011. I think it was in November. But Braden would be out before her 21st birthday. So sometime before October 2013. So they're not going to meet until then. So when I read this, I was like, hold on. Wait a minute. What do you mean you can't meet until 2013? Until a couple of years later? Why not now? Why not visit, the prison where he was being held at? Well, I also found an answer to that too. It turns out that Braden had broken a deal in which he would agree to give up his visitation rights in exchange for a reduced sentence. Man, this relationship is just going to suck. I would have been like, nope, next. That's so good. Anyways, Renae and Braden kept in close contact and their feelings towards one another continued to grow. They messaged each other daily. And when Renae told her mother about Braden, Teresa was, surprised. She was taken aback. And Teresa wondered if it was way too soon and if it was even a good idea to jump into another relationship that soon. And not to mention the fact that Braden was in jail. But Teresa still supported her daughter nonetheless, and she wanted Renae to be happy, so she supported her. Sometime later, like a couple of weeks later, Braden reached out to Teresa directly to reassure her of his good intentions with her daughter. And this is what he sent her according to court documents. And I quote, Renae is upset because everyone keeps telling her the obvious, that I'm in jail and it will never work. She is everything to me, and the last thing I want to do is to hold her down. She chose to go through this with me, and after everything that happened, she became my best friend. I have fallen for her, and she tells me she feels the same way. Teresa, I'm a good guy. I would never disrespect her or lie to her. Huh. Oh. I don't know how I feel about this. Wouldn't that be crossing a boundary because formally they haven't even met? But maybe he is in his right mind to defend his relationship? I don't know. At this point, I think we need to know more about him. Renae and Braden's feelings toward one another got really intense, and they never held back with expressing how they felt. Braden would send Renae flowers, cards, and gifts. And after just 3 months, they first began texting. So 3 months later, after they first texted, Renae visited a tattoo shop with her friend Camilla, and there she got another tattoo. She had the name B. Spiteri tattooed on her right side of her chest on New Year's Eve of 2011. Later on that night, Renae was looking forward to a night out clubbing, and she wore this, cute little red dress for the occasion, to receive the new year, 2012. Dang, what was I doing in 2012? I think I was working at the bank. Anyways, so Renae snapped a quick picture and sent it to Braden, and he didn't compliment her. Instead, he said the dress was too revealing, and he warned her that she better not cheat. And Renae didn't really have fun on New Year's Eve because Braden bombarded Renae with all these jealous text messages. Uh-oh. Oh no. This isn't good. This is not good at all. This has all the signs of toxic relationships. So we move along to April of 2012 after the New Year's incident. One day, Renae's mother, Teresa, was Facebooking, and she came across a post that Renae's ex-boyfriend, Angus, posted. Teresa had always had a close bond with Angus, so she gave Angus's post a thumbs up. There's really nothing wrong with that, I don't think. But Braden saw the engagement from Teresa, and he was furious. Oh, he was furious. He hated that she was still communicating with Renae's ex. What? And he made sure that Renae knew how he felt via text. But he didn't stop there. Oh no, he didn't stop there. He went on and sent Teresa an abusive text message accusing her of being an unfit mother. Hold up. First of all, how did he find out if he's in prison? Maybe he had access to Facebook? How did he find out that Teresa liked Renae's ex-boyfriend's post? The answer is that he did have access to Facebook, but it wasn't his Facebook. It was Renae's. It turns out that Braden had gained access to Renae's Facebook when Braden underwent surgery, which required several weeks of recovery, and he was unable to use his phone during that time. That's interesting. So this was in April, and by May, Teresa could no longer bite her tongue. She told Renae she found Braden to be rude and arrogant, and she didn't think that this was a healthy relationship. Their conversation must have been heart to heart, because by the end of the conversation, Renae agreed to end their romantic relationship, but she still supported Braden as a friend. And so we move along to August of 2012. Braden applied for parole and succeeded, and Renae was relieved that finally the two would be able to meet in person, but it didn't happen. It turns out that shortly after his release, Braden got into an altercation with his father. His father filed assault charges against Braden, and Braden was back in bars almost as quickly as he had been let out. Renae was devastated, and Teresa was becoming concerned. She'd seen her daughter deflated about the whole situation, so she took it upon herself to reach out to Braden. She requested that he limit his contact with Renae at least until he was a free man. Braden agreed, and he told Renae to move on. Okay, so this is good, right? I mean, he's letting her go. And he promised her that things would start up again as soon as he was on the outside, out of prison or out of jail. I don't know what he was in at this time. I just know that he was behind bars. And Renae, she tried to move on, but the lack of contact with Braden left a void in her life. And I guess work wasn't going too good for her either. It all became too much. That was so good. According to court documents, it's at this time when Renae took an overdose of medication. She didn't intend to hurt herself, but the dose made her sick for several days, and she was nauseous and she couldn't keep any food down. Sometime later, Renae started dating a coworker by the name of Ian. Teresa was really happy, even though Ian was 12 years older than Renae. According to sources, Ian treated Renae well and made her happy, but there was complications in a relationship. It turns out that Brayden found out about the relationship and he managed to get Ian's contact details. He sent Ian a warning, and I quote, "Stay the fuck away from Renae." October of 2012. There was an award ceremony at work and Renae dolled herself up in a new dress and she took a photo of herself in the hotel room. She posted it to social media and within minutes, she received a message from Brayden. The message made an observation that Ian's shoes were visible in the picture. Brayden then accused Renae of cheating on him. Renae didn't let this incident stopping her relationship with Ian from progressing. In December, Renae and Ian, they were attending a Christmas party for work and they had plans to go to the casino afterwards. Just as they were about to leave, Ian's phone vibrated and there was a message from Brayden, another threatening message, but Ian ignored it. By January of 2013, Renae and Ian were engaged, but the thing is that Renae still maintained contact with Brayden, and that had become a real big problem in their relationship. And by March of 2013, Ian finally had enough, and he gave Renae an ultimatum. It's either him or me. That's what he told her. And Renae agonized over the decision, but she made up her mind, and unfortunately, she chose Brayden. I would have chosen Ian. Yes, he was older, but at least he was out of jail. The two, meaning Renae and Brayden, they worked to rebuild the relationship, but they were always arguing, and mainly over Ian. Brayden couldn't seem to get over the fact that she had a relationship with him in the first place. Brayden and Renae's relationship was described as being toxic. They were loving and supportive of one another, and the next day, they were arguing. On one occasion, Brayden mentioned about not being sure if he was ready to take over his father's company or not. Renae thought this was a big mistake, and Brayden accused her of being greedy and materialistic. And these frequent arguments that they had, they usually ended up with Renae apologizing, to pacify Brayden's concerns. This is a big red flag, especially when you're the only one apologizing. He is unwilling to admit his mistakes, even though he's made them. It seems like in this relationship, Renae was the only one willing to put everything into it. And she was willing to say she was wrong, even though she wasn't. There was even one time where Brayden was having issues with his phone. Renae offered to meet up with his lawyer in hopes of passing along a new phone that was to be given to Brayden. But Brayden refused. Renae was also putting her life on hold for Brayden. She wanted to pursue the career of forensic science, but she would have to move to a different city. She avoided making plans, at least not until Brayden was out of jail. Renae wanted to know more about Brayden's possible release date, but Brayden refused to give her any answers. She insisted on meeting up with his lawyer. Again, Brayden refused. Renae pointed out that Brayden had been visiting his lawyer multiple times, so why couldn't she do the same? Renae, that's a very good question. But get this. Brayden got upset and mentioned something along the lines of, "Who are you to question the meetings I have with my lawyer?" He added some obscenity somewhere in there too. And I guess Renae had enough and she told him that. But Brayden quickly backtracked his words and offered an apology. And the message read, and I quote, "I love you, Renae. You changed my life from day one. I know there has been some hard times, but I adore you. You're so beautiful in every way. I love you and I miss you so much, Renae, without fail, every day." Okay. So we're in mid-April of 2013. Brayden and Renae had been in an on-off relationship for about 1.5 years. That is a lot, and she still hasn't even met the dude because he's been in jail all this time. During the whole relationship. So come May of 2013, their relationship was at an all-time high. It was during this time when they started talking about marriage and their plans for a honeymoon in Greece. Brayden texted Renae, We will have the best wedding, baby. I'll make you happy. I'll do whatever you want just for you. I want you to be mine forever and to be mine for the rest of my life. I want to be your husband and you be my wife. Aww, that sounds so sweet. So Renae was over the moon with these words, and it was around this time that Renae started a new job as a receptionist for some company. But Brayden was not happy about it. Of course not. Brayden was jealous about the time that Renae was spending with her new co-workers. A few days later, Brayden asked Renae what she'd been up to, and she did lie. She did lie to him. She said that she hadn't left the house, but Brayden knew this was a lie. Wait a minute. How did he know where she was at? This is getting fishy. How did he know if he's in jail? How does he have this much freedom? That's what my question is. How does he have this much freedom? How? This is so good. This is good. I should try it. High road. An upstep. It turns out that he admitted that he had installed a tracking software on Renae's phone and he could see where she had gone to the gym. He told her that he could no longer trust her and that their relationship was over. He'd only consider forgiving Renae if she stopped socializing with her work colleagues. Renae apologized profusely. Okay, pause. I'm still stuck on that installing a tracking software on Renae's phone. I mean, I don't understand. The dude hasn't even met Renae in person, but what on earth made him think it was okay to do this in the first place? I didn't even know that was possible without having the other person's phone physically. And this argument continued for days, but nevertheless, by mid-June, their relationship was back on track. And Brayden's parole date was looming around the corner. And Renae was optimistic about their future. So she could see like a light at the end of the tunnel. And she was like, oh my goodness, I'm finally going to meet the love of my life. Finally. But then, one day, Brayden informed Renae that he wouldn't have access to his phone for a whole month. I couldn't really find out the reason why, but Renae welcomed this and she used this time as a period of reflection for her. However, on July 22nd of 2013, she wrote a letter to Brayden. In the letter, she professed her love for him and that she would do everything in her power to make the relationship work. Renae really wasn't sure when Brayden would have access to his phone, but she still texted him every day, hoping that she would receive a reply. But silence. By the morning of August 5th, 2013, over a month had passed with no communication with Brayden. And sadly, August the 5th of 2013 was a tragic day for Renae. But let's talk about the day's events leading up to the tragedy. Not having contact with Brayden was taking a toll on Renae. She confided to a work colleague, and this colleague's name was Joseph. They agreed to have lunch together later that day to talk about it some more. I guess Renae was about to have a mental breakdown, or she needed to talk to somebody because Brayden hadn't gone in contact with her in over a month, and she didn't know what to think. But guess what? As luck would have it, she finally received a message from Brayden. And it wasn't a welcoming message either. It read, I think I need a break, and so do you. Renae sent Brayden a bunch of messages, but Brayden didn't reply. Renae was beside herself, and she was too upset to return to work, so she took the rest of the day off that day. When Renae arrived home early from work on the afternoon of August 5th of 2013, Teresa, her mother, could immediately sense that something was wrong. Renae was typically happy and bubbly with a bright, infectious smile, but she was visibly deflated. Teresa asked Renae if everything was okay. Renae assured her mother that she was fine before disappearing upstairs to her bedroom. Teresa gave her daughter the space and she trusted Renae would talk to her when she was ready. So Teresa is, tinkering around downstairs and Renae was upstairs. And then suddenly her phone pinged. Teresa had gotten a message from none other than Brayden Spiteri. It read, "Sought your daughter out. She is threatening to kill herself." Teresa was like, what? Teresa responded with, "Please explain to me why a young woman would want to kill herself." Brayden, "Ask her yourself. Maybe explain to me why you never got her the help last time. Have you ever thought that you have neglected her when she clearly needs help?" What the heck? Who does this guy think he is? If you're trying to date someone's daughter, why would you talk to her parents like that? Anyways, moving on. Teresa went straight up to Renee's bedroom and showed her the messages from Brayden. She asked Renee, should I be concerned? And Renee responded with, don't be stupid, Mom. I finally figured out what he's all about. You don't have to worry about it anymore, Mom. It's over. Teresa reluctantly left her daughter alone, but went back upstairs to check on her a while later. Teresa found Renee getting dressed into her black tights and a t-shirt. Teresa asked her, where are you going? Renee told her that she was going out for dinner with some of her friends and that she would be back later, or she would be back shortly. And this made Teresa feel better. Maybe ending things with Brayden wasn't so bad after all. I mean, she was already going out. At least that's what Teresa thought. So Teresa left home to take her two younger children for swimming lessons, but little did she know that that was going to be the very last time she saw her daughter alive. It was around 5:49 p.m. when her phone pinged again. It was a message from Renee. It read, and I quote, I love you so much. I'm sorry for everything and the pain that I will now cause you, but I will be okay. I'll still be here. When you need to talk to me, just call my name and I'll be there. You're the most amazing person and mother ever, and my very best friend. I need you to understand that it's okay. Don't let this ruin everything else you need to take care of. I need you to be strong for me. I love you, Mama. I always will. And I'll be waiting when you come. Teresa wasn't entirely sure what to make of her daughter's text message, and it wasn't out of character for Renee to send her affectionate texts. But this one was significantly different. Teresa called Renee several times, but there was no answer, and finally, she called local authorities to do a welfare check on Renee. Police officers arrived at the Marsden house at 7:50 p.m. and were immediately concerned for Renee's welfare. They put out an alert for Renee's car, which was a red Mazda 2, and started patrolling the streets to be on the lookout for the 20-year-old. Meanwhile, Teresa texted Renee's friend, Camila Zaidan, and asked if she'd heard from Renee. Camila responded, she messaged me a while ago. Is everything okay? Camila later said she'd received a message from Renee just minutes before Teresa had gotten one from Renee. Camila offered to come over and help Teresa look for Renee, and they drove around to various locations where Camila thought her friend might be, including a nearby McDonald's. Police contacted Renee's cell phone provider, who informed them that her phone had been switched off just before 6 p.m. in the vicinity of Vaucluse, a Sydney suburb 40 kilometers east of the Marsden home. This location raised immediate red flags for police. Close by, and the reason? Well, close by was the Gap. The Gap was a high ocean cliff over the Tasman Sea. It was a popular tourist destination, but this place was also a notorious suicide spot. As of this day, it's estimated that every year, up to 50 people take the 100-meter leap into the sea and the rocks below. And measures had been put in place. They installed cameras, and they even installed a 24/7 crisis counseling telephone on the site. And unfortunately, at 8:45 p.m., they found Renee's car parked roughly about 150 meters from the steps of the Gap. Her wallet was inside with an old iPhone she'd stopped using 2 months prior, a Valentine's Day card from Brayden Spiteri, and a small collage made up the very few photos that Brayden had sent Renee. Police also noted that written in condensation on the car windows were the words, I love you, Brayden. Renee's parents were notified and they rushed to the scene in a panic. Renee's car was usually filled with personal items like clothes and makeup, but it struck them as odd that now it was completely empty. So, because they found her car parked near the Gap, police conducted both land and air searches. Teresa and her husband Mark walked the coastal cliffs and surrounding paths and parkland shouting Renee's name, but they didn't find her, and the search had to be called off because it was really dark already. So they resumed the search the following morning, and it was then that they found Renee's flip-flops. And they also concluded that Renee had taken the leap from the Gap. Teresa had a hard time believing that her daughter committed suicide. She refused to believe that. To her, it didn't make any sense. Just days earlier, Renae had celebrated her cousin's 21st birthday, and she was even looking forward to her own 21st birthday bash. So the question became, well, what led Renae Marsden to go to the Gap and do this? Teresa was convinced that Braden Spiteri held the answer, and the thing is that she was having such a hard time getting a hold of him. Over the course of the next several days, Teresa sent several texts demanding answers, but there was no answer. Nobody has met the guy. There was only one picture, but that was it. Nothing else. Camilla Zayden urged Teresa not to blame Braden, saying that he was hurting as well. Teresa asked her how she could possibly know that. Camilla admitted that Braden had called her. According to Camilla, Renae had expressed suicidal thoughts in the past, but had promised to never act on them. Camilla told Teresa it didn't have anything to do with Braden. I think Renae was just an upset person, and she always felt like everyone was against her, Camilla told Teresa. Okay, hold up. You would think that this wouldn't be a very smart thing to say to a grieving mother who had just lost her daughter. How could you possibly say that to her mother? I just don't know. With people today. Nowadays, they just say the most insensitive things. I swear. In this case, it's just getting weirder and weirder. And during their investigation, police gathered phone records and CCTV footage to help them piece together Renae's final moments as well as her final interactions with Braden. But there was a problem. Renae's primary phone was never recovered, so they couldn't get the contents of the message sent from that particular phone. Authorities attempted to unlock Renae's old iPhone that was found in the car, but it was protected by a password. They pulled phone records instead, and it was discovered that on the day Renae died, she and Braden had exchanged, get this, 91 text messages. And these messages happened after Renae assured her mother that she had ended things with Braden for good. Telephone records indicated that Renae continued to send Braden more messages, but he didn't respond. It was then that Renae drove to the Gap. According to phone records, she arrived around 5:20 p.m. Renae sat on a brick wall near the Gap when a message came in at 5:46 from Braden. She sent Braden 3 more texts, but there was no reply. She then sent a text to her friend Camilla Zayden, and it was followed by the goodbye message to her mother. Renae removed her shoes and climbed the nearby fence. As she glanced over the rocky cliff edge, she received a text from Braden. Renae replied straight away. 2 minutes later, she threw her phone over the cliff before disappearing from view. By the time Braden wrote back at 5:55 p.m., Renae was already gone. A phone call Renae had made at 2:44 p.m. was also significant. It appeared shortly after receiving the text message from Braden saying that they needed to take a break. It turns out that Renae had called Goulburn Prison, and what transpired on that 92-second phone call was unknown, but it was possible that she'd learned what the police had come to know for themselves, that there was no inmate at Goulburn Prison named Braden Spiteri. What? What the? Oh my goodness, this slapped me on my face, right on the cheek. I did not see this coming. What? Okay, so I have questions. Who then was Braden Spiteri, and why was Camilla defending Braden Spiteri from Renae's mother? What was up with that? I need to recover from this shock. I bet y'all didn't see that coming, did y'all? And if you did, let me know in the comments below. I'm kind of curious to see what y'all were thinking, or if y'all saw that coming, because I didn't. So let's look into Camilla now. Let's see what's up with her. I think I mentioned in the beginning that Renae and Camilla had been best friends since they were in freshman year during high school. Teresa later pointed out that Renae's behavior had changed considerably. Renae was always outspoken and outgoing, but Teresa noticed that the more time Renae spent with Camilla, the more withdrawn and quieter she became. And get this, Renae's cousin, Stephanie, always felt that Camilla had always tried to drive a wedge between her and Renae. Stephanie also stated that Camilla had become violent towards her, sometimes pushing her and punching her hard enough to cause bruises. She mentioned a day where she had spent time with Renae, and Camila had called her 16 times in the span of 50 minutes. Sometime in 2008, Renae made another confession to Stephanie that Camila had tried to kiss her several times. Renae declined Camila's advances, and Renae made it clear that nothing would ever eventuate given that she was straight. Camila responded with one email to Renae, and the email read, and I quote, "I swear to God, kid, you're going nowhere. Do you understand? You abuse me? Oh, I will laugh. You kill me? I'll be your ghost. You hate me? I'll still love you. Run away? Chase you. Hide? I'll hunt you down. Only I'll own you. You got no way to escape, babe, because only I'm in love with you. Only I'll own you, and only I'll have you forever." Holy crap, Camila is freaking crazy. She's unhinged. You never know. Stephanie, I think I'm shaking because this tea is getting to me. I don't know, or it could be the case because dang, now I'm trying to figure out who the hell is Braden's patootie. Stephanie told Renae's mother what was going on, and eventually they organized all this parent-kid school meeting where it was agreed that no further contact between the girls would happen. In 2009, Renae was sick of the way Camila treated her, and she attempted to distance herself by leaving school to study hairdressing. But Camila enrolled in the same course that Renae was in. Renae started seeing Angus sometime in 2010, and she tried to put even more space between herself and Camila, but Camila would show up at her workplace. Ultimately, Renae dropped out of her hairdressing course to avoid Camila. And Renae mostly ignored her until August of 2011, when she eventually caved in and the two resumed their friendships. But things didn't improve. One night, Renae received 54 missed calls from Camila, and Renae responded, "I'm sorry, but that's possessive. If you can't see that, then there is something terribly wrong with you." Renae, I agree with you, Renae. There's something terribly wrong with her. Camila tried to give an ultimatum to Renae. It was either her or Angus. Renae responded that if it wasn't Angus, then there was going to be someone else, no matter what. And that is true. 2 months later, Braden Spiteri entered the picture, given that Camila and Braden were close friends. Camila was privileged to an insider's view of the couple's relationship. When Braden would display jealousy, Camila would warn Renae not to cheat on him. She was their biggest supporter and was always encouraging Renae to remain loyal to Braden and to work through any of their rough patches. As Renae and Braden Spiteri's relationship progressed, the friendship between Renae and Camila continued on rocky grounds. Periods of closeness were followed by weeks of arguing. Renae made multiple attempts to distance herself, but Camila always found her way back. In March of 2013, Renae confided in Braden that Camila had hit her and pulled her hair after a night out. She told him that she was done with their friendship for good. Whenever things went sour, Braden typically tried to smooth things over, often taking Camila's side and telling Renae to be more understanding. Other times he told Renae to break away from Camila and find new friends. By June of 2013, Renae and Camila's relationship had become particularly volatile. Camila was about to embark on a month-long holiday to the United States, and Renae saw this as an opportunity to put some distance between them once and for all. In late July, while Camila was on vacation, Renae sent her a text message saying that she was done with their friendship for good. She told Camila not to contact her upon her return home. Renae was relieved to have cut ties, but it was a lonely time for her, given that Braden also didn't have access to his phone at this time due to his pending parole hearing. She recorded her feelings in a letter to give to Braden later. In it, she said, and I quote, "I can tell you I have finally let Camila go for good, and I feel so much better about it now." This is insane. I mean, have you ever had that one friend that was a little bit too close, but then you brushed it off as, oh, it's probably nothing? If you have, you should always follow your gut. Camila was freaking crazy. So there was no inmate by the name of Braden Spiteri at prison, and upon further inquiries with correctional services, authorities found out that there was no record of him there either, not even at the high school Braden claimed to have been or have attended. Bottom line, Braden Spiteri had been lying to Renae all along. The ex-boyfriend, Angus, conducted an investigation on his own. Angus looked up Braden Spiteri on Facebook, and the first thing that was suspicious to him was that many of the hobbies and interests that Braden listed on his Facebook matched that of Camilla's. Angus reached out to Braden, and the two started chatting back and forth. Anytime Angus asked Braden questions about himself, his answers were always vague. Angus also noticed that Braden's messages shared the same distinct spelling and grammatical errors as the ones he'd seen Camilla sent to Renae. Worried that his ex was being catfished, he voiced his suspicions to Renae that Braden and Camilla were one and the same. Renae became extremely upset at the allegation and strongly denied the possibility. And this all happened before, Renae jumped off the cliff, unfortunately. Telling you, this was more like a Lifetime thriller. But this happened in real life. Not that long ago either. Teresa asked Camilla to see the last message Renae had sent her, but Camilla claimed she'd accidentally deleted it. When Teresa told Camilla that she'd given Braden's phone number to the police, Camilla panicked and demanded that she ask for it back. Police continued trying to access Renae's old iPhone, but were unable to bypass the security code. Desperate for answers, the Marsdens contacted Renae's mobile service provider and requested a copy of all her text records. However, this data was only held by the company for 7 days. By the time they asked for it, it was already too late. On August 25th, 2013, 3 weeks after Renae's disappearance, Camilla Zayden arrived at the police station for a prearranged interview. She had been asked to bring some notes about her friendship with Renae, the pair's most recent communications, and her knowledge about Braden Spiteri. Renae's final text message to Camilla read, "I'm sorry for everything. You will always be my best friend. I hope one day you can forgive me." They asked her about the circumstances about meeting Braden. Camilla stated that she had met Braden at some nightclub, but that she couldn't recall the exact day or even which nightclub. They asked Camilla for Braden's phone number, but she didn't have it. It turned out that her phone was broken at the time. But the officer wasn't buying it. And they told Camilla, "I want you to be honest with me. The telephone call logs that I have here, right in front of me, suggest to me that you are Braden Spiteri." Holy crap. Wait, what? So there was no Braden Spiteri. Braden Spiteri was out of the picture. So in other words, Camilla was Braden Spiteri. There was no love triangle here going on. It was Camilla all along. So Camilla was like, "No, but I know that a lot of people think I am. Everyone's against me. Everyone has always been against me." So they let her go after this interview. But on September 23rd, basically almost 1 month after her first interview, police arrived at Camilla's home with a search warrant. They found 3 phones in Camilla's possession. 2 of the phones had the SIM card, but the third phone was missing the SIM card, and they could not locate it. They also found a letter that Renae had written to Braden, but it was ripped to shreds. They also found a second letter where Renae wrote to Camilla thanking her for introducing her to Braden Spiteri. She wrote, and I quote, "You don't understand how much it truly means to me. If it wasn't because of you, I wouldn't have met the one person that means more than the world itself to me." So before officers left Camilla's house, one of the investigators turned to her and asked her, "Is there anything you would like to talk about, Camilla?" Camilla paused for a few seconds and then she admitted, "I was sending the text messages to Renae before I left for America. Renae, she wanted me to pretend I was Braden." The officer asked, "Why?" To which Camilla responded, "I don't know. I just did it because she wanted me to." I don't know what to say. You just never know with your friends, do you? Camilla then asked, "What's going to happen to me now?" The investigating officer replied, "At this stage, Camilla, We are just interested in finding out what happened to Renae. Oh, I love his answer. Authorities tried to download the data from the 3 phones confiscated, but they really didn't reveal much because Camilla had already deleted the majority of the communication between herself and Renae, including the final text message that Renae had sent Camilla on August 5th. But they did find the photo of herself and Braden saved on one of the devices, the only photo that Renae had of Braden's face. Officers asked Camilla, "How well do you know Braden?" To which Camilla responded, "I really don't remember him. I must have met him at some nightclub." At this point, authorities had Renae's phone in their possession, but they returned it to the Marsdens after 3 months of unsuccessfully trying to crack into Renae's old phone. And get this. Renae's 13-year-old brother Luke had a friend. Now this friend thought that they could crack into the phone. "Yeah, we can," he told the Marstons. "All we need is to download this app." And the app was 100 Australian dollars. The Marstons paid for it, and y'all guess what? It turns out that within 10 minutes, they had access to several messages over a period of 3 months. April to June of 2013, there were over 11,000 text messages sent between Renae and Braden and Renae and Camilla. Renae's father, Mark, took all of this data and began the long task of slowly unscrambling each and every single one of them, of the messages. And he plotted them in consequential order on a spreadsheet to kind of give him a better idea of a timeline. And during this, Mark did notice a pattern. There was no point in time in which Camilla and Braden messaged Renae at the same time. In other words, the conversations never overlapped. Renae never messaged Camilla and Braden at the same time. And this makes sense. I'm not sure if you remember, but back in 2012, when Braden had been out of communication because he had so-called surgery, turns out, it was the same amount of time when Camilla took her month-long vacation. The time that neither Braden or Camilla had any contact with Renae. Just when I think I couldn't find a more off-the-wall case than the Alison Botha case, well, I was wrong. This case is just as crazy. Teresa Marsden struggled to accept the fact that she would never properly mourn Renae. Renae's body has never been found, and because of this, she still had some hope that Renae was still alive and just ran off to cope with the situation, to escape the threats of Camilla maybe. So Teresa still distributed missing persons posters throughout the coastline. She was really hoping that Renae would pick up the phone and contact her. Keep in mind that this was all in the year of 2013, and during that year, no arrests were made. The investigation stopped. Renae's body was never found, and no one ever knew or could conclude what happened to Renae. And the case went cold all the way up until 2019, 6 years after the disappearance of Renae Marsden. It turns out that the advances of technology finally made it possible for law enforcement to have full access of the contents of Renae and Braden's text messages. And it wasn't until then that it was very clear that Camilla had been behind this made-up Braden Spiteri persona all along. There was even a message from Braden encouraging Renae to have sex with Camilla. Renae responded with a firm no. According to Australian law, the act of assuming a fake online identity in order to target a specific victim is known as catfishing. And catfishing itself wasn't considered a criminal offense. The only way it's considered a criminal offense is if it's done for the purpose of an illegal act, such as fraud, financial gain, stalking, or grooming of an underage person. Because Camilla hadn't used a fake account for any of these punishable offenses, there was nothing that local authorities could do. After 6 years, Teresa Marsden came to terms with her daughter's disappearance. She still did hire a criminal lawyer to push for a coronial inquest because she wanted to have some closure. She wanted to find out what exactly happened to Renae. And for those of you who don't know, a coronial inquest is a formal court hearing that investigates the circumstances of a death or a suspected death. The purpose of the inquest is to determine the identity of the deceased, the cause and manner of death, and the date and place and how they died. So basically an inquiry surrounding the disappearance of Renae Marsden. And the main goal was to determine the true role that Camilla's actions played in Renee's suicide. Also to find out the final text messages sent between Camilla and Renee. The other thing that the Marsden family wanted to find out was if Renee knew about the true identity of Braden before deciding to end her own life. Camilla at first refused to participate in the coronial inquest, but eventually struck a deal that ensured that she would not face prosecution if she appeared at the inquest. So she gained immunity. This meant that whatever she said in court, even if it was a punishable offense, could not be used against her for future charges. So total immunity here. But the Marstens didn't care. All they really wanted was the truth because they just wanted some closure. This was like 6 years later. The coronial inquest began on February of the following year, 2020. February 2020. 7 years after Renee's disappearance. The Marsden family were anxious to finally get the answers to the questions that they've had for so long. Since it was 7 years ago, Camilla Zayden had moved on with her life. She was married with children. At the coronial inquest, Camilla denied any of the obsessive behavior that she had been accused of. She denied ever following Renee or even calling her excessively. They showed her some of the intense text messages, including the one about encouraging Renee to have sex with her. Camilla stated that she had just loved and cared about Renee. Camilla admitted to playing the role of Braden Spiteri, but that she did so because she and Renee were involved in a romantic relationship. They both thought that their families wouldn't approve, so she basically said that Renee was in on all this charade of creating this persona of Braden Spiteri. The coroner then presented Camilla with numerous pieces of evidence retrieved from Renee's old iPhone that challenged her claims. Turns out that during the inquiry, they found out that on the day of the suicide, Renee had called Goulburn Prison and even wrote to a Greek consulate asking if a convicted criminal could obtain a holiday visa. Local authorities also came back with, if in fact Renee was in on this charade as Camilla had stated, then why would she have done those things? Why would she have called Goulburn Prison? And why would she even write a letter to the consulate? Local authorities also pointed out the text messages where Renee had an argument with Braden about wanting to speak with his lawyer. In addition, why would Renee have booked an appointment with her wedding photographer and send Braden photographs of brides and grooms if she knew such wedding could never exist? They do have a point there. During the inquiry, they also found out that Renee had sent Braden sexual images of herself and had gotten upset when he refused to reciprocate the act. Like, all of this contradicted Camilla's claims. This isn't looking good for you, Camilla. And Camilla's explanation for all of this was that Renee had simply been in character. So Camilla is saying all of that today, but the simple fact was that Camilla wanted Renee all to herself, and creating Braden was the perfect opportunity to do that. Upon further investigation, they came to the events of the day of August of 2013. It turned out that just days after Camilla returned from vacation, she participated in a soccer match. Renee typically attended Camilla's soccer games, and Camilla would get upset if she didn't pay any attention, if Renee wasn't paying attention to her. On this occasion, Renee told her mother that she would never go to another game because she didn't ever want to see Camilla again. The coroner concluded that Camilla likely interpreted Renee's absence as proof that she was being serious about ending their relationship. And the very next day, she took revenge by having Braden break Renee's heart at her will. And the worst part was that Camilla appeared completely unaffected as she told the court that she had no recollection of what was said in those final text messages, the messages between Braden and Renee. The only thing she remembered was that Renee was talking about her lack of purpose in life. Of course, she's going to say whatever helps her case. Camilla claimed that she had no idea that Renee had driven to the Gap on August 5th of 2013. nor that she was serious about threatening to kill herself. Can you, and oh my goodness, can you imagine? Can you imagine this? That the Marsden family waited over 7 years just to hear this load of crap from Camilla? At the end of the day, they still hadn't gotten their answers. The answers that they so desperately needed so that they can get some closure. Terrible. This is terrible. The coronial inquest ran for 4 days, and the final report was handed down on May 20 of 2020. According to the coroner, he called Camilla's evidence nothing but a pack of lies. I agree. It was clear that Camilla wanted Renae all to herself, and she created this persona of Braden to manipulate and control Renae. The coroner also concluded that Renae likely did not learn that Camilla was in fact Braden, and that Camilla probably did not want to tell Renae because in doing so, she would have to admit to having engaged in such appalling conduct involving such an extreme betrayal of trust of her friend. Now, I did mention earlier that in most Australian jurisdictions, it is a criminal offense to encourage someone to take their own life. But without the true contents of the last messages sent from Camilla's phone and Braden's phone, there was no basis to prove that Camilla had incited Renae's suicide. And without this evidence, the coroner stopped short of blaming Camilla for Renae's suicide. However, they did accept the fact that Camilla had, and I quote, caused the heartbreak that led Renae to take her own life. Since this crime, Teresa had been pushing for Renae's law. This law would widen the scope of state laws to cover nonviolent types of domestic harm. This would implement laws that would apply to individuals who engage in similar conduct to Camilla's. So essentially, this would make catfishing a punishable offense, and it would be similar to intimidation and stalking. The coroner also stated in his report that Camilla displayed a lack of kindness to Renae's family through the lies that she told, seeking to cast blame upon them for Renae's unhappiness. So at the end of the day, police were unable to charge Camilla with any offense under existing laws despite her actions. Oh, this is sad. I feel bad for the Marsden family. I don't know if there's a sense of justice being done here. I don't think there is any. What do y'all think? So the only thing that they have left going for them is Renae's law. And if it does get passed in Australia, it would somehow give them some degree of comfort that it wouldn't happen to another young lady. And oh my goodness, this is the best way to honor the memory of their daughter. The Marsden family began campaigning to make catfishing a criminal offense when it is done with the intention of causing pain and suffering. I did do my research to see if Renae's law had been passed yet, but as of this recording, it has not been passed yet. So it's not made into law yet. My sincere condolences go up to the Marsden family and friends. I feel that there was some sort of lack of accountability. The Marsden family couldn't even get the closure that they so desperately needed or desperately need, actually. And they couldn't understand why Camilla would have at least met them halfway with the truth, with what really happened. Because Camilla had immunity. Why couldn't she just tell the truth? Now, I did have one final question during the research of this case, and who was the guy in the picture with Camilla? I was kind of curious. So it turns out that right before the inquiry, 31-year-old Cameron Carpenter had just been sent a link of Renae's case. Cameron couldn't believe it was him in the picture. He stated that he did not have any recollection of when that picture might have been taken, but that judging how young he looked, he concluded it was a long time ago. And since it was a big deal, like Renae's case was a big deal in Australia, he didn't even want to leave his house because his picture was all over the media. He wanted to set the record straight, and he reached out to Renae's parents. They were hesitant at first to meet up with him, but they recognized the situation that he was in. It was hard for Renae's mother, Teresa, because it was his face that was associated with their daughter's death. Oh, man. And I think that with social media and the increasing use of social media, There's a lot of people out there in similar situations. We can take a lot from this case, and we learn from this case that sometimes friends are not who they are. Social media has become a dangerous weapon to society as a whole. But I think we can do some good with it, such as spreading awareness to social issues in today's society. And catfishing is one of them. If someone creates a different persona with the intention of causing harm, either physically or mentally, that should be a punishable crime. But that's just my opinion. I did do additional research about U.S. laws regarding catfishing. It turns out that in the United States, catfishing someone for money is illegal. It falls under fraud and can lead to serious legal consequences. But what about other crimes like the one committed against Renae? I did find out that catfishing is not explicitly a crime, but the actions that often accompany catfishing, like extortion gifts, sexual images, or the grooming of a minor, are crimes. I was quite unsure about catfishing with the intent of harming someone mentally. Until then, y'all need to be careful out there with social media and dating apps, and that is all I have for this case. This was something else. This case was crazy. If you want me to cover a case, just let me know in the comments below. As for the missing child from the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children, I wanted to feature a child with an active Amber Alert. And I did have the child picked out. And I wrote what I was going to say. But before the recording of this video, this child was found just a few days ago. The investigation is ongoing, and I almost didn't feature him because the outcome wasn't what anyone would have wanted. And I hate this, but I think he deserves this. Elijah View. He went missing from an apartment complex located in Two Rivers, Wisconsin on February the 20th of 2024. He was only 3 years old. Elijah went missing from his mother's boyfriend's apartment. I did more digging into the background of Elijah's mother and found disturbing information. Allegedly, Elijah's mother, Katrina Burr, sent him to stay with her boyfriend Jesse Bang for a week. According to court documents, Katrina sent her son there because she wanted Jesse to teach Elijah by example on how to be a man. According to the criminal document complaint, Jesse Bang stated that Elijah was disciplined using timeouts. He described timeouts as standing for periods of time from 1 to 3 hours. 3-year-old Elijah was required to pray or say, "I'm sorry, mommy," during this timeout time. It's always got to be the boyfriend. This is disgusting. According to court records, on February 18, 2024, at approximately 4:36 in the morning, Jesse Bang messages Katrina Burr, "I told you to trust me. I'm going to make sure he hates me and being here." She responded with, "I don't want him to hate you, just fear you." Jesse responds, "It's okay. Someone had to be the bad person." Katrina messaged, "I know, but either way, that he can fear you and respect you." Jesse responded, "He did fear me. He didn't respect me. Now I'm making him respect me." On February 20, Jesse Bang put Elijah at the foot of his bed. Elijah was on timeout and he was required to stand there and pray. Jesse Bang then decided to take a nap. He woke up from his 3-hour nap and discovered that Elijah was nowhere to be seen. An Amber Alert was activated and a massive search ensued. Elijah was not found until 8 months later. Two Rivers police confirmed that on September 7th, that human remains were found by a hunter on private property. They were those of Elijah. He would have celebrated his 4th birthday last month. Katrina Burr and Jesse were arrested and charged with child neglect. I'm sure additional charges will be brought against these two as the investigation is ongoing. I hope justice is served for baby Elijah. Y'all make good choices and stay loaded. Until next time, and let's take a moment to remember Elijah View.